Hello and welcome to Norwood Digest, Norwood Community Media's news magazine show. We've got a great show. We've got a lot of people coming in, so let's get right to it. Joining me now is Town General Manager Tony Mazzucco. And Tony, you're just finished your first year. What'd you think?
So, a year ago, I think I sat here and I said this was a good town with good staff and good people in town. And I think the only error I made there is that it's a great town, great staff, and great people. So I've had a lot of fun my first year. I've enjoyed the job. I've enjoyed living in the community. I've enjoyed being a part of the community. So I made a joke. December 18th was a year since I was appointed. I said 1 down, 19 to go. So far so good.
Yeah, I mean,
so far very good.
One of the things that I think is great is I see you everywhere. So you're here all the time. Is that a conscious decision?
Yeah, a lot of town managers, you don't have to live in the town you live in to be a good town manager. I was relocating from the other part of the state, so I knew I wanted to. Every town I've been a manager, and I've always lived in the community I've worked in. To me, it's a combination of it's important to be a part of the community, that you're also responsible for managing the town's operations, but I also enjoy it. So if I lived in another community, I don't know how I could do both. I'd be rushing off to a meeting one way or another, so I'm somebody who just sort of picked a job that I like doing and picked something that I love doing. So what's the work day, what's the work evening, it all sort of blurs together for me, and I'm okay with that.
So what was the biggest change, if you will? Like I forget, did you have a light department where you were before, things like that? What's different about Norwood?
So didn't have a light department. So obviously working with the light department's a big change. In terms of the schools, I actually like that we have our own school department here. I had a couple of regional school districts as well as a charter school out in the western part of the state, which just makes it complex. I mean, you're dealing with really 3 different superintendents and 3 different school systems and 3 different school models, schools in different communities. It makes it a lot more difficult to work with the school department and to sort of feel that you're a part of the community. We had a separate water and fire district out there, so the fire department was separate, the water department was separate. So some days I'd go into the office in Western Mass and it was just dealing with the complexity of how we were structured. Here, it's actually a lot more streamlined. The town hasn't, the charter went in 1914, and there hasn't been too much of a change since then, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It means we've been very stable, so that's been a big change. Traffic's been a big change. I'll be honest with you, I grew up in the town of Randolph, not too far from here, but by the time I left sort of the greater Boston area and came back, it was about 8 or 10 years, and the traffic is just horrible. I made the mistake of trying to go to Dedham at about 2:30 today, and even coming back on Route 1 at 2:50, the traffic was just bad. But
anytime you go to Dedham, it's a mistake.
Yeah, that's true. I take the attitude of it's what happens when you leave Norwood. I mean, you can go about 5 minutes across the border in any way, but it's funny. I actually would travel and see family in the South Coast area more when I lived out in Western Mass than when I do here now. And everyone says, Tony, you're sort of back home and you're not seeing families as much. And my response is always, well, you guys can come to Norwood. It's just a little bit easier for me if you come to Norwood.
So what was the biggest surprise?
Biggest surprise is tough. I'll be honest with you, there's a sense of pride in Norwood that you don't have in a lot of other communities. And not that that's not a good thing, that's a great thing, but walking in the grocery store and people just coming up to me and saying, hey, we got a great town here and we like the town staff and the light department's great and the DPW is great. You don't have that in a lot of communities. There is still a great sense of community pride here. And there's an actual sense of community in Norwood. People are aware of Norwood, they're aware of the community, they're aware of being a part of the community. You don't have that in a lot of places anymore. And I knew early on it was okay, it seemed like that's the case, but as time went on, it truly is, and you just don't see that in a lot of towns. Certainly a lot of places I've lived and worked, you don't have that same level of community or that sense of community. And it's not overstated community pride, it's people just love Norwood, and there's nothing wrong with that.
The crown jewel of the Commonwealth.
I was at a manager's meeting, and it was at a conference in Baltimore, and I happened to step away from the table having dinner with a group of managers from around Massachusetts, and apparently as I was away, somebody said, geez, does this guy ever stop talking about Norwood? And a colleague might defend me and said, well, I think he just loves where he lives and works, and that's what it is, but it's a community worth talking about.
So you've been here a year now, you've got to assess things. Anything you'd like to change?
So I'm a fan of always trying to do better. I had a few more hairs up here than when I started, so I had to put some down here to kind of balance it out a little bit. I'm always a fan of some of the boring types of reform that you can do, administrative reform, moving departments around and sort of changing things on paper. But what that does is it helps us provide a better level of service to the public. And we already provide a great level of service, but administratively we could do a little bit more. We're looking to do a little bit more online. We've been rolling out more of a social media presence in some departments. We're going to keep growing that. We're changing over our financial software, which is more than just changing over our accounting software. Within about a 3 or 4 year period, we're going towards what cities and towns are calling sort of the 24-hour City Hall model, where just about all of our services will be available 24/7, which is good. It's a great service to the public. Town halls are still traditionally open. business hours. So if you work a regular business schedule, as you know, it's tough to find to get into town hall
Yep.
for a birth certificate, for a license, for anything you need. So we're looking to roll some of those things out to just make the town a little bit more accessible. We put some more information out about the budget last year. We're looking to do more of that and get more information out to the public and see how we can get the public involved in the budgeting process and the town's financial process. Not that we haven't done well with those things, but we're looking at areas where we can go from good to great. We did a management retreat this year. All the town's department heads got together, and sort of the theme was going from good to great. And how do we go from good to great? And we do a lot of good work. We do a lot of great work. How do we improve that and make it even better?
Who wrote that book?
I think it was actually Jim Collins.
Yes, I
not
know
our
it's
Jim
Collins,
Collins,
right.
but a different Jim
Yeah,
Collins.
I read that book. It's pretty good.
Yeah, we actually gave out copies. That was sort of the whole, we department heads as a team read it, and that was sort of the theme for our department retreat.
So it seems this is the first time that people are taking a serious look at an operational override. And you're right in the thick of it. And how's that group getting along? How's it going?
So far, the conversation's been positive, which is important. Everyone is doing what they think is best for the community. So, you can say there's no right answer, there's no wrong answer. Everyone has the best interest of the community at their heart, and we just have, some people will have a difference of opinion as to what leads to what's best for the community. I always encourage people to look at the future, and whenever you make a decision like that, think about where we're going to be in 5 years, in 10 years, and in 20 years. It's about looking down the road. We can get sort of caught up in the politics of it. We can get caught up in the battles of A or B and this budget line versus that budget line. But take a step back and say, where do we want to be in 10 or 20 years? And in 10 or 20 years, we want to look back and say, thankfully they made the right decisions, and not, they didn't make good decisions 10 or 20 years ago, and that's why we're the situation we're in.
Right.
Norwood hasn't made any bad decisions. Norwood hasn't done anything wrong. There's been no fault. It's just a discussion about where we want the community to go and where people want the community to go. And tax overrides are difficult. There's a lot of politics behind them. There's an affordability question for a lot of people in the community. And then there's an honest question about we're a democracy and what level of service do people want.
Right.
Some people may think we don't need a higher level of service. Some people are fine with the level of service we have. Some people may want to pay for a higher level of service. And those are all fine. There's nothing inherently wrong with any of them. So I hope the discussion continues, and as long as it stays positive and everyone on both sides of an issue has the best interest of the community at heart, we just disagree how to get there, and that's fine. Disagreement is okay.
But one of the things that I really appreciate when I sit back and watch, because it's not like this in every town. It's the town, the town side of government gets along with the school side, the school department, and when you're working in concert, you get way more done than when you're not. And I see it all over the state in what I do.
Absolutely. At the end of the day, there's no town and there's no school. There's just Norwood. Like any family, you're going to fight over money,
Yeah,
and there's always going to be that debate in the public, do we spend more here or less here? But we're all in this together. It's one community. There's no town and then the school department. We're all in this together. School systems are really your biggest economic generator in a community. It's what people choose to move into a community based on the school system. But as you know, education in Massachusetts, it's expensive. We have the best, I always tell people we have the best, it's not my words, but we have the best school system in the country in Massachusetts, but we pay for it.
Yeah.
So it's tough.
And yeah, we do. But it's worth it. There's an old saying, and I know I should be crediting it to somebody, but I can't remember who it was. If you think the cost of education is high, you should see the cost of ignorance.
Absolutely.
And that's what you're fighting about
I
sometimes.
mean, we pay a lot in Massachusetts, but we get a good product. And what would Massachusetts be without education?
Right.
And again, when people are looking for a community to move to, I personally always like to think they look for a good town manager, but I'd be willing to cede my ego to the fact that people look for a good school system.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other services that we have to provide as well, but that's what draws people and attracts people to a community.
So one of the things, and we're gonna if there's nothing else that you want to make sure that you talk about.
Really briefly, there's
Go
one
ahead.
thing I'd like to
Go ahead.
mention. So every year, the Moral Memorial Library teams up with the Bruins, and they do a pajama drive with the Bruins PJ Drive, and a lot of libraries across the state do it. So this year, we're stepping up our game and working with the library, and we're directly challenging the town of Bourne, who comes in first every year in the Bruins PJ Drive. Now, it's a little bit personal for me. My mom works at the Bourne Public Library, and I interned for the town manager in Bourne many, many years ago. So we're challenging Bourne to see if we can come up with more pajamas than they do. And it's new pajamas that go to kids in the Commonwealth who want to have a safe and warm winter and safe and warm pair of pajamas. We're trying to beat Bourne, and that's actually our hashtag is Beat Bourne for our campaign. We have a PSA that'll be going out in the next day or so. Bourne is right on top of challenging us. They're using the hashtags Never Norwood and Nix Norwood. They've likened themselves to the Patriots, and we're just the haters complaining that they always win and we want to challenge them. But personally, we think that the Moral Memorial Library is better, and we think Norwood's the better hockey town. So in the Boston Bruins PJ contest, we think Norwood can beat Bourne, and we're going to be doing that. So you can drop off starting February 1st. new pajamas for kids ages infant up to 18 at any of our town facilities, and we're looking to get some community groups in the school system involved as well. So #BeatBorn.
Well, you made something, a real good thing fun.
Absolutely.
So that's great. And so a couple of other things and one of the things that we talked about, the collaboration between all of the departments in Norwood is really something. And probably one of the great examples of that is Impact Norwood. And we're going to leave and show you a little PSA, and you're going to see this young man's face in it as well. And it's a little bit of Impact Norwood, so let's run that.